Footy and Frothies, Daggy and Barney are back to look at round 13 of rugby league action. Barney's about to carry me through this next hour and a bit of rugby league talk because I did see most games, but I haven't sat down and put much thought to what we're going to talk about. So it spews out of my mouth, what usually happens. But I was lucky enough to spend a weekend in beautiful Mudgee at the Woolpack Hotel and visited Mudgee Wines, and Jane and Brett out there looked after us. Good weekend celebrating Brizey's 60th, so that's all been good. But there's some good footy played. Interesting footy played, Barn. How are you?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, there was. Yeah, pretty good, mate. A bit of an emotional weekend for myself, but these things happen.
What happened?
Oh, it's just, finally cleaning out their eldest daughter's room.
Aye.
Haven't seen for a while, so got to me, but that happens. Yeah, enjoyed a lot of the football this weekend. I probably had a few too many beverages on Saturday night, so it got a little bit cloudy. But
that's right. In good company there.
I have gone back and had a look at bits and pieces. I've still got a pretty good recall of what happened. I didn't go way overboard, but which I have done on other occasions. Sounds like you had a ripper weekend out there at Mudgee.
A lot of fun.
To see the winery and
met some good people,
locals
and some others, and who are jumping on board the show, hopefully, and we'll see how we go in the next few weeks. So, welcome aboard to all of them. Welcome aboard to everyone watching on YouTube. I forgot the tripod, so we're in wide-angle lens today. Hey, everyone there. Sorry about that. But it's a glimpse into the standards of my life. But anyway.
You've been pretty busy, mate.
Not a lot of... I don't have a lot of injuries and judiciary and that sort of stuff, so we'll cover a lot of that. Anything important.
It's been pretty fresh. Still pretty fresh at the moment. We're doing this. We normally have a day or two where we get to see the fallout of everything, but straight off the back of the Newcastle Manly game.
We watched that and digested what we can there. And now we're getting stuck into it at the Grey Gums. So we'll get straight into it, I suppose. We kicked off... we're also, by the time you've seen this, you'll have seen that there is a State of Origin preview up as well. So we're going to do that next. That'll be its own show. Stick around for that as well. Check out rugbyleaguemerch.com to buy some of these cool hats and beanies and steins and everything else that's up there.
Best beanie I've ever owned, that one.
It's a good beanie. Hats are good too.
Yeah, they are.
Got a pretty good working out over the weekend, so that's good.
Yeah.
And also some shirts and other stuff. In fact, there's a shirt up there, that mentions the state of my life, but that's a different story. Thanks to Scott and all the team there. But we're kicking off on Thursday night. Feels like an age ago, 26-12. The Dolphins, probably a classic case of class prevailing in the end, Barn. But what did the stats say?
It was 4 tries to 2, 4 out of 4 conversions, played 1 out of 2 for the Dragons. 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for both teams, and a missed field goal attempt from the Dolphins. 88% completion, played 82%. 225 plus running metres for the Dolphins, 5 line breaks from both teams, 20 tackle busts for the Dolphins, 38 for the Dragons, 12 offloads to 7, 4 forced dropouts to 1, 332 tackles played, 397, 8 errors to 7, 5 penalties conceded to 8, 1 ruck infringement given away by the Dolphins, 1 given away by the Dragons, and a sin bin for the Dragons. Supercoach points, Little with 110, Asako with 100, Jeremy Marshall-King with 89. Best game I think I've ever seen Little play in his life. He looked threatening out of dummy half for the entirety of this game.
I hope that Carr chooses to back him because I think he's talented. I do think he's talented.
Absolutely.
I think
he showed a lot of it in this game.
The Maguire system of him just shoveling doesn't. I think he's a running hooker.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's a defensive. He's
very good.
A very solid defensive.
Acceleration off the mark. That first 10 metres, he was burning guys.
Him and Simpkins for the Tigers too. I think they were just in the wrong system for a couple of years, basically, because Simpkins came to getting off target, but came to the Tigers from Queensland as a running weapon hooker, running hooker weapon. So hopefully he gets on back on track. But this was, I agree, at least his best game. I'm sure he did have a blinder early on. He played some real good stuff for the Tigers.
First sort of handful of games.
I hope he kicks on and really gets into his work. And I like the fact that he was rushed straight back in and. Yep. They've moved on. But
it was really nice control display from the Dolphins. I think that's what got them home in this one. I mentioned last week I thought they went a bit over the top with the aggression and probably cost them at the back end of that game, whereas this one they just seemed really set out to play through the middle, play to their strengths and hit the edges. And when they talk about blokes in career best form, Jermaine Asako is absolutely deadly weapon at the moment every time he touches the ball. He left 4 or 5 blokes like clutching at air at different occasions in this game. And he is in the best form of his entire career, and he'd be close to the form winger at the moment in the
I think
competition.
so. And then you throw on, he's a Kiwi. So just looking at it, he's a Kiwi. You throw on his goal kicking, and he hits a ball as sweet as
80%
anyone
at the moment.
in the comp. He was outstanding here, absolutely outstanding. But they started slow, the Dolphins, and
The Dragons were on top
probably
for
looked
10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, and looked worrying to a degree, given the start. Nice enough signs for the Dragons, but I don't.
Oh, they're much better than they have been for most of this year, to be honest.
And it's probably going to take another 2 or 3 weeks for them to work out how they're going to play this new style with Little playing hopefully 70, 80 minutes and working from there. But
Hunt's there, he probably gets them close. If not, gets them home at the back end of this game because they definitely lacked a bit of poise there when they were in attacking opportunities. The ball seemed to hit the ground a few times when they did get it out to the edges. But I thought they were pretty dominant for the first 10 or 15 minutes. But the Dolphins were pretty strong in their resolve as well. I think they turned them away a couple of times and defended really well in that sort of 15-minute period. And then they just took over and continually just pressured the Dragons' defensive line. Nice little kick from Milford. And I mentioned Asako, the big professor. yes. I love seeing that bloke crash over for tries. He's just your typical.
He's now a try scoring machine.
Looking front rower. He's got a nice little shimmy when he hits the line, and it's good to see how excited he gets when he crashes over for a try. I love that. And that was straight off the back of scoring the try before. They just stormed straight up the other end of the field and went in again. Dragons, sort of as they do, tend to once they hit the bottom, they stay there for 10 or 15 minutes and just sort of have quite a few defensive issues there. Finally, we saw a sin bin for the Cannonball.
Yes, which I've been shouting for.
We've been talking about it for 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, absolutely hammering it every time because it's a horrible tackle, and we finally actually saw someone get sin bin for it. It's probably it wasn't a great tackle, but there's been a hell of a lot worse that haven't been sin bin as well. So, I think it was a fair enough 10 minutes.
And we didn't see a sin bin for Kenny, which I thought should have been.
Again,
on the flip side.
I think that's 2 weeks in a row where he should have probably got 10 minutes and he didn't. He's getting a bit older and grumpier, I suppose, and he's always had sort of played at that edge a bit, but seems to be coming out a little bit more often these days. Anthony Milford dusted off the old dancing shoes. He was fantastic at times. He looked like a different version of himself in attack. He's really good with his footwork, and he seemed just moving a hell of a lot better than I've seen him move for a long time, and he caused a lot of problems out there. And
tormented young Sloan at times with his kicking too. Yeah. He's got that. It's not a floating bomb, but it's like an in-swinging bomb. It's a bit, he's got that kick, and Sloan struggled with that a lot of the night.
Yep.
But they're getting some good combinations around. And Nicarima, I don't think fullback suited him as well as the halves had.
He had a couple of flashes where he looked really good.
But defensively, I think he had his issues at fullback.
He was out of position a lot.
He's covering for someone. It's not his job. But
no, that's right.
But he did have some nice points of attack too.
Yep. I thought, the Dragons were pretty decent effort from them, especially in their forwards. Their forwards were quite good for the majority. There's a couple that weren't fantastic, but we don't like to seem to dwell on that kind of stuff when we're talking about the footy. Both of the Molos I thought were good. Francis didn't take anyone's head off for a change, which was nice to see, and Michael did a decent job in the front row for the Dragons. Ben Murdoch-Masila, I thought, had probably one of his better games for a little while. He was, especially in defence, I haven't seen him move that well laterally and defend. He made a couple of nice covering tackles in this one. Couchman looks like a prospect coming through. He's found the line again. Seems to score plenty of tries.
Sneak out a try too, can't he? He's, I think this week his Supercoach money kicks in too. So if you are looking for, it seems now they're going to back him. So if you are looking for an absolute,
he's pretty agile. He's not a monster where he belts guys, but he's physical enough and got some nice agility about him. So someone you could probably look at there. I thought their halves were decent, but they just
what do you make of Sullivan given a full 80 minutes after everything's happened with moving Hunt, getting him in, getting him out? I feel like he's
hard one. I think they're both sixes. I think
Yeah,
Amone
but,
and
right
Sullivan
now
are both
in-
sixes.
Sullivan's role in his team is to play 15 minutes and do what he did against the Tigers, basically.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, there was times where this game, the Dragons especially, didn't have a leader. Like it was.
Well, I said last year I probably would have been playing him in front of Amone at 6,
Yeah.
even though we have seen some really good games out of Amone. I just think there's a bit more consistency out of Sullivan, and he's probably a stronger defender, even though neither of them are fantastic. But yeah, I think he's more of a running 6. Don't think he's really set out to control a game, and his passing game for mine's a little bit iffy at times, especially when he's trying to direct the forwards around, and then the cutout pass is sort of hit and miss from mine. But they both did. They were decent. Just didn't really create the opportunities that they could have. Their outside backs were pretty average, I thought, from the Dragons. Considering they were much better
I'm actually
last
shocked.
week.
I'm just looking at the stats. I'm actually shocked Sully didn't make an error because I swear he made 3. But anyway,
It's funny how some of those things disappear off the stat sheet at times. But yeah, I thought most of them were pretty average. Apart from Matthew Feagai had a fantastic game again, and they're still hot and cold. Both of the brothers, they'll have a good game, and then a couple of average ones. But they're young kids coming through, so you sort of that you can get away with that a little bit. The younger you are. Little was, brilliant. I mean, we mentioned it before. He was realistically the only sort of attacking spark that they had, and it was generally just his running game where he'd pick up some loose markers or a hole on an edge and just burn his way through it, and then the play had come off the back of that. I think all the Dolphins were pretty good, except for maybe the 2 front rowers are pretty average, just considering the shifts that they've put in earlier in the year. They, I think they could have been a bit better, but and the halfback, he was quiet this week. He was still quite decent with his kicking game, but
who was that? Was it us that were talking about potentially he might be the one that spend some time out, or was it someone else chatting over the weekend?
I think it was someone else. We did mention it last week, but I thought that he'd probably still hold his position. Just
because it's almost. Well, we
he's another one that I think is more of a
Sullivan's
off the top of the head.
back. Yeah, does it push Katoa out of the side rather than Nicarima or Milford?
Considering both Milford and Nicarima have been
Well,
very
if you're picking
good.
on form, Nicarima should get the 6 spot
You
back.
would think so, yeah. It probably wouldn't hurt the young fella to go and play a month in reserve grade either, though. You remember he's still a kid. I think he's only 19.
He's 19,
yeah.
And like we said, that's not knocking him anyway.
Considering we're talking about the Dolphins as a team,
still part of his development. Really,
we were really worried about their halves going into this year. Well, I always had a rap on Sullivan, but yeah, we were really worried about their sixes and a couple of their outside backs, considering the form that they'd shown before they got here. Just definitely a big tip of the hat to Wayne Bennett. He's got them all up and going and playing with each other. So Nichols and Stone were good, I thought, for the Dolphins. Kenny Bromwich was decent, apart from maybe should have spent 10 minutes off the field. Lemuelu, he's turning into a week in, week out, just consistent, strong back rower, and he's did it again in this game. Milford, Jeremy Marshall-King made a really big difference in this game. They were the guys that when push came to shove and they needed to find points, they were the two that were tearing apart the defence to make sure that they got the points out of it. So,
the rise and rise of Marshall-King is amazing. Like he's now first pick Kiwi hooker. You'd think,
you would think so.
Play space. Yeah. And in the conversation for best hooker in the game now, yearly, for what he brings to a team each and every week.
He's not running all the time, but when he just seems to pick the perfect time to get out and annoy the hell out of people. His defence is pretty solid, and he's got a very good passing game as well. So yeah, everything you want out of a hooker, obviously. He'd be up there, and he'd be in the top 3 for mine at the moment this year. Yeah, easily in the top 3.
I would have. I think he's a former as a cook because I don't think Harry Grant's been quiet for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And Cook's been good. I'm just trying to think who else.
Appy's just sort of starting to hit
Appy's
form.
Starting to.
Took a long time
We'll
to
see
get
what
there.
the rest of. Yeah, and that's a new setup. But the next 6 weeks are big for Appy.
Egan and Robson have been pretty consistent, but they're tier below what Marshall King's putting out at the moment.
If you were going to make the case he's the best hooker in the game, I wouldn't argue with it right now.
Yep. So I had Asako with the 3 points. I just thought he was brilliant. Pretty much everything he did in this game. Little with the 2, and then actually gave Milford the 1. I thought he was It's between him and Jeremy Marshall-King, but I just thought
I'm
for
okay
a bloke
with that.
who hasn't, set the world on fire for 5 or 6 years, this was a brilliant game. So.
Just two blokes we haven't touched on, really. I actually thought DeBellin had quite a quiet game, first game as captain, but then I just looked and he made 60 tackles. So
He still did did a ton of
through
work.
a mountain of work, but he
And that's with 10 minutes on the sideline as well.
Yeah, so kudos to him. And, like, a word on Tyrell Sloan, like, what is he?
I think it's in his head, to be honest.
Is he better off getting out of that whole system? Is he?
I think so now.
I feel like, I think I compared him to Matt Duffy last month, and I think it's like, just go to England and carve up and see what you can bring back down the road, maybe.
He's just the only way he's going to get himself back to.
But he also has to
the
go
form
looking.
That
He
was
doesn't-
doing
yeah.
is by setting himself a goal of making. I have to make 15 runs this game, no matter what.
Yeah.
And just get involved and follow. I need to be there for support every time there's an offload. I need to be within 5 meters of the ball. Like he just, I don't know if it's a laziness thing, if it's a fitness thing, or if it's just in his head that he's not confident enough to go looking for it. But
Well, because you compare, I know we're comparing to an Origin fullback, but what Walsh has said is that he's made a point of having. He wants to be running the ball and be attacking that as often as he can. So. No doubt he's got the ability. It's just, where he goes. I don't know. But I agree with you 3-2-1. I don't have much more to add, really. So we'll get on to Friday night. And this was a labour, perhaps for many involved. The Eels 24, the Cowboys 16, missing their stars. The Cowboys are very brave, actually, in fairness to them.
yeah, they
And bounced back in decent form, but a largely full-strength Parramatta. Eventually got past them, and again, as with the first game, I guess class prevailed over 80 minutes. But what did the stats say, and what do you make of this?
Probably a bit harsh saying mostly full strength. I think they're missing all their back rowers, aren't they, at the moment? But
Oh, well, sorry. Injuries, not
the best that
Origin-wise.
they could put on the field.
Hang
absolutely.
on. Sorry, I apologise. Yes, I know, Para fans. Madison, Lane, Paulo, RCG. Okay, fair enough. So the reserve grade Parramatta team beat the reserve grade Cowboys team in.
4 tries to 3, 4 out of 4 conversions, played 2 out of 3 for the Cowboys. 75% completion, played 83%. 286 plus plus running meters for the Eels. 8 line breaks to 5. 29 tackle busts, played 32. 5 offloads to 9. 2 forced dropouts by Parramatta, 1 by the Cowboys. 363 tackles, played 391. Parramatta again with 14 errors, 9 to the Cowboys. 4 penalties conceded to 2 ruck infringements against the Cowboys. Scott Drinkwater with 118 Supercoach points, Mitchell Moses with 98, and Kyle Felt with 92.
Yeah, this was a labour for Parramatta, but it was never really. I mean,
Well, the first half
it was never really doubt, but it was
really
it was very dour and competitive. Yeah.
Yeah, like they were just bashing each other back and forth through the middle of the field in that first half. I think there was a couple of saved tries on both sides of the field as well. The Cowboys, well, they were a different side to the team that obviously showed up the week before. They'd obviously been read the riot act, and they came out. They did come out very strong. Different attitude, completely different. They seemed to play a little bit different as well. It seemed to play a lot more direct rather than ball movement before running. You know if you get what I'm saying. They get closer to the defensive line before they started spreading the ball rather than just pass for the sake of it and have the centres and wingers run onto it. But they did what they do. They just seemed to absolutely hit a wall 10 minutes into the second half and just did not come back for about 20 minutes. They looked like the bloke who cops a head knock and sort of staggers about for 5 minutes trying to get his bearings back together. They were completely shot. Especially in the middle of the field. Wiramu Greg was tearing up the middle of the field with another couple of the guys there for Parramatta and were causing a lot of problems. Once they started hitting the edges, I think both wingers scored in that time. Again, in Parramatta, when they're at their best, they're very crisp, up-tempo passing movements. So it's pass, and then they'll hit an edge. But again, they're running in, drawing defenders, and it just looks so slick at times when they get it right.
And it's usually pass. Oh, here's Gutho, extra body, pass, and that's where that space comes from. Yeah, Will McGreg's had a fantastic month. He's been outstanding. I mentioned him. I've mentioned
Ever
him each
since
week.
RCG got injured, he's really stepped up.
He's gotten better every week, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Physical, big, strong, quick enough for a prop. But
Parramatta probably did well to keep himself. They scrambled and saved probably 2 dead set tries that should have been tries for the Cowboys, and that was part of the reason that they were able to get away with this game at the end of it. I expected them to blow the Cowboys away at the end of the game, and they seemed to shut up shop with 10 minutes to go, which obviously let the Cowboys jump in with a try at the back end of the game to get close. But as you mentioned, it never really looked like the Cowboys were going to get.
The only time it did was that last 3 minutes. You're like, here we go.
What could happen here? Yeah.
Can Para be the gift that keeps giving at times?
Yeah, but apart from those last couple of minutes, they never really looked in trouble. So, I don't have a lot more to say on it. I thought Griffin Neame and Tanoa Brown were good off the bench for the Cowboys. Cohen Hess was very good. He's become a lot more consistent this year, which is good to see, considering he's been a bit of a punching bag for not so much us, but Gumpy used to like to get into him a bit when he was on the show.
Yeah.
Helam Lukey had a very good game after a poor game last week. Felt Townsend were very strong for the Cowboys. Robson and Drinkwater.
I actually thought it was one of Townsend's better games.
Yeah, definitely was. His kicking was much better than it has been.
That he hasn't had for.
He wasn't missing every third tackle like he does some games where he just seems to not be able to tackle for some reason. But Robson and Drinkwater were their best by a mile. Drinkwater again, this is the attacking spark. They don't seem to have a attacking spark unless he's involved with it. Like they don't seem to challenge the line enough to be able to pull it apart unless Drinkwater's involved. Or it's a one-on-one effort from somebody. And, Robson just tackled his ass off, made a couple of nice little runs in and around the middle of the field. Did he score a try?
No, it was felt
one taken off him or something. But he might have set one up. But, back five from Parramatta were good. Penasini was the best of them again. It just gets better and better week in, week out, ball in hand. I'm sure there'd be a lot of Parramatta people screaming at me right now saying the bloke can't tackle, but...
I thought he made some nice defensive decisions in this game.
He did. He does have a lapse in him, but he's definitely getting better. And be somebody, if I had him in my system, I'd definitely be keeping him around to be playing centre for my team. But I think he's quite good. The halves are brilliant. They absolutely controlled this game, especially when they were down in attacking positions. Brown's put, I think 3 out of the last 4 games he played have been fantastic, and Moses generally is always decent. He has a howler every now and then, but I think every player in the game does that on occasions. Cartwright and Makatoa were good in their forward pack. Makatoa, from being someone who was sort of not playing at all or maybe getting 5 or 10 minutes, is starting to really look like a bench player that can have a bit of impact when they use him off the bench. And Cartwright has just settled himself into this team quite well now. He's taken Lane's spot, obviously, but this has been his best year for a long time.
If ever. Probably since his rookie year.
Yep.
Really.
And
Hopgood
was the best of their forwards by a mile. He's just that worker that just does everything. I'd love to see him with 10 kilos, 10 kilos of muscle on him because he'd be killing blokes. But he just works so hard. He's consistent and he's pretty aggressive too at times. So he's got a very nice offload in him too. So.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. I think you've summed it up pretty well there. The irony of poor Joffa. Parramatta screaming last week about him getting injured for that extra game, and he walked off after 10 minutes, having not been completely fit either, which is why he was off the bench for the Tigers to come with. But poor bugger. He's a good bloke and a very good clubman, so he's hopefully not too bad, and he's back doing better stuff for Para. Yep. As I said, class prevailed, and what do you take out of it? Not a lot. You just...
No, it was it's a bit hard, especially through Origin time, to really take too much out of... The main thing you're going to be looking at is the ladder position after the Origins are finished, really. So I know this season's pretty much been a toss of a coin for the majority of the season, but it probably gets even harder in these ones, to be honest. I think the favourites won every game, though, didn't they? Or not the two tomorrow. No, yeah.
I think that, I've given up just trying to pinpoint where teams are at because probably anyone can beat anyone, and...
It's pretty close
to it. Close closest comp we've got, so we'll just tell it how it is and try and piece it together again when we look to next week.
Gave Moses a 3, just
Okay.
more so he was on the winning side. Drinkwater was close to being, was very close to my man of the match, but I just thought Moses probably was the reason that they ended up winning the game, and I had a 3-way tie for the 1 point. Robson, Dylan Brown, or Hopgood.
Give it to Hopgood.
Yeah, I like it.
Hopgood, and honourable mention, the other mention would be Greg. I think he had another big game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Saturday afternoon kicked off in Napier with the Broncos, the baby Broncos. For years and years, it was a thing that the baby Broncos would get the job done, and it might not be a completely juvenile side, but they did a fairly good job against the Warriors, who perhaps should have won this game, let's be honest. But an entertaining enough game. And what did the stats say, Barn?
Old man A-Ray helped them a long way to get the win in this game. The tutelage from the old fella in the background. But 4 tries apiece, 3 out of 4 conversions for the Warriors, 4 out of 4 for the Broncos. 1 out of 1 penalty attempt for Brisbane. 72% completion, played 80%, 176 plus run meters and 104 plus post-contact meters for the Warriors. 5 line breaks to 4, 46 tackle busts to 32.
I've just seen the stats for some of these Warriors players. Fuck me. Keep going.
46 tackle busts for the Warriors, 32 for Brisbane. 10 offloads to 7. 2 forced dropouts by Brisbane. 344 tackles played, 325. 11 errors to 10. 5 penalties conceded to 8. 1 ruck infringement from both sides. Dallin Weteni-Zelezniak with 121 Supercoach points. Chance Nickel-Clockstad with 98 and Adam Reynolds with 86.
When was the last time a prop went 264 metres?
Probably Payne Hash at some point recently. But
They're Teddy stats.
Yeah.
Fuck me. How did they lose this game?
Fanua?
Barn? Fanua Blake 264, Dallin 241. Who we talked about Azarko. What about the form Weteni-Zelezniak is in? He's a monster. He just throws himself.
He has an off
at
game
line.
every month or so, but yeah, he's been absolutely tremendous.
Absolutely outstanding this year.
Yeah, career best form
And
for
Chance
him back at the
240.
Warriors.
Tohu 212.
They just couldn't complete.
Yeah.
Their problem was when they got down into that 20 or 30 metre area of the Broncos' defence, they were well on top for 20 minutes, probably even the first half an hour of this game, and they were just throwing challenges after challenge at the Broncos' line. There was some brilliant cover defence, like the Tristan Saylor try saver. That's the best one I've seen this year. The way he just gets the palm of his hand around the bottom of the ball and pops it back out when after his hand hits the ground. That was fantastic. And he did it again too. I'm pretty sure he saved 2 tries in this off his own bat with one-on-one tackles. And that's just desire. That's not skill. That's not something he's been taught. That's just being in the right position and working your ass off to make sure you get there to make that tackle. And yeah, he was, out of all the guys I think I mentioned last week about it, I was looking forward to see these young blokes come through. This is the only one that really made an impact.
I was going to say, given the half a bar I had for Luke Metcalf, I don't recall him.
No, he did very little
touching
in
the ball.
this game, to be honest. He just sat back and let Sean Johnson do it. And really, he was really needed at different points to inject himself into the game, and he didn't do it. Yeah, the Warriors were dominant for half an hour and just couldn't score points. And then they end up fucking up a play with a pass out the back, and Dean Mariner just picks it up and runs the length of the field to score, get the scoring underway. And the Broncos really got a bit of a lift out of that and sort of put some pressure back onto the Warriors for a 20 or 30-minute period. But I think the Warriors were the better team for close to an hour in this game, and they just couldn't put them away.
It was the story of probably these next 3 games that there was no killer blow from the better. The 2 of them, the other one lost 2, but Knights again today. Just it was like watching early season Tigers.
Just sat back and soaked it up.
All in all a possession and nothing to, not really an answer, and not really feeling like there was an answer.
Yeah. And South seemed to find an answer for about 20-minute period and put points on, and then went away from it for whatever reason. But the last 10 minutes. The second try from the Broncos was a horrible forward pass. I don't know how they got away with that. I think it was Ricky scoring off the hooker, and that thing went as far forward as it did sideways to get to the bloke who scored the try. Obviously, the bunker can't rule on that one, but yeah, that was that was very obvious if you go back and watch it. 12 lunatics all tried to jump the fence at some point during this game. I think 3/4 of them didn't even make it over the fence.
I saw I just saw them show the package
That
of it
was,
before.
mate, I don't have $5,000 to be going to
Classic
stupid
nature.
shit like that,
Yeah.
but Jesus. Gal was quite strong on it today, saying they can't take games back there and all the rest of it, carrying on the way he does. But yeah, it took him 36 minutes, and it was just a nice shift out to the edge, and Dallin Bernie's winger on the outside to score for the Warriors. But as I mentioned, it was a horrible forward pass for the second try, and the last 10 minutes of this game, the Warriors really started stretching the Broncos all over the field, and were putting so much pressure on. I think they scored a couple of late tries and looked like they were going to come home, but they just again couldn't find that killer blow.
Well, they did come home. They did come home. They scored.
No,
in the
but
last...
over the top to
right.
that last sort of 10 or 15 minute period.
Yeah.
I was expecting them to lay on 3 or 4 tries
gotcha.
and actually get the win at the back end of this game. And it was set on the platform, as you mentioned. The big forwards were absolutely dominating the middle of the park.
For what they did through that middle of the field, and they're marching up in a matter of 3 tackles.
3-4 tackles, yeah.
But that was on the back of Chance again was outstanding, very good. And
Dallin was taking a whole
just
heap of
throws
hit-ups.
himself to the line, like he just
doesn't care.
Throws in. I might get smashed here, but I'll smash you next time.
And good luck stopping Fanua Blake if he gets a bit of pace up running into the line.
Yeah,
the bloke's an absolute monster this year, and another one that's close to career best form, even though he's always been pretty damn good. On the flip side, the Broncos just seemed to execute every opportunity that they got. Obviously, there was a bit of dead ball stuff where they picked up a bouncing ball and ran the length of the field. There was the forward pass I mentioned, but there was also a couple of really nice tries laid on by Adam Reynolds and blokes out a bit wider. Herbie Farnworth again, I thought had a very, very good game for Brisbane. I thought Karen and Ale were good for the Warriors in the middle of the field. Berry was pretty strong. Denied a try early, and Tohu Harris again. He just continues to just knock the door down every time they give him the ball. A couple of nice offloads, and as you mentioned last week, he's got a bit of a passing game that he's starting to bring out at the line, which helps him. Sorry, excuse me. You mentioned Nickel Clockstad. He was brilliant, but it was the hyphens that were their 3 best players. Nickel Clockstad, Dallin, and Fanua Blake were brilliant for the Warriors.
Let's not gloss over it too. Adam Reynolds won this game for Brisbane. I thought every time he was in control, they were outstanding, and
the
as
way
you said, he nursed them along. 540 plus kicking meters.
Yeah,
and just had it when they needed to pin and when they needed to execute, he did it. The importance of a class halfback
saved him from doing a bit of that hard work in the middle that they didn't have to do, where he could just kick him out of trouble a lot of the times. As I mentioned, Farnworth and Saylor were very good. Mariner had a decent game, considering he doesn't get a lot of first grade.
Their stocks are quite good. Like their back stocks are great because I know Herbie's going next year. There's still got Oates to come back, but he was in pretty good form before he went.
He was.
I wonder if they try and back a Sailor in the centres next year, or
Possibly.
Creativity there, or whether Jesse Arthurs just gets the spot and they work that way.
Be interesting. Well, if Arthurs comes in, you could put Sailor on the wing anyway, really.
Well, you can move Cobbo into the centres, I suppose.
Cobbo probably would be a good centre.
Probably better centre, yeah.
Big, strong fella. Who else haven't I mentioned here? Ricky and Capewell were the best of the forwards for the Broncos team. And Adam Reynolds, he was the difference in this match, and he got my man of the match.
And Jensen got through a lot of work as well. But the 3 senior players are what propped up Brisbane here. And I reckon 2 points in this game is like gold, because I don't think anyone's tipping them. Missing their forward, missing 5 blokes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The more points that they can juice out of this.
And they got dominated in
sets
the
up
middle
well.
like we thought they would, but they've managed to find a way to get the points at the end of the day, and it's a massive one for them.
Is that a concern for the Warriors, or is that just a bad day, or a... Well, end of the day, like I said, they should have won. So
I think they
let's
seemed
talk
to
about
get
the
a bit,
last play
bit more
where
excited, to be honest, a bit overexcited, and
where he did all the hard work. It was Rocco Berry, wasn't it? Did all the hard work and then just grabbed a bloke's jersey.
And
Cost him the game.
he was never getting to the tackle. He was
No.
never getting there either. But yeah, absolute absolute mind snap and
Cost him
grabbed the
2
jersey.
points.
Yeah,
Simple as that. Yeah, Reynolds 3, and
Dallin too.
kudos
for
to
Newell
Brisbane
Blake,
for that.
the one.
I would struggle to argue with that. I hope they give Tristan Saylor a good, decent crack and look after Walsh for the next couple of weeks, next month, and see what he's got.
Looks like he's got a fair bit.
I wonder if he, it'd be very interesting to see the trajectory of him and say a Campbell, like where they end up after the same amount of games.
Dragons fans would probably wish that they held
Yeah,
Saylor and got rid of Sloan, but
There they are.
circumstances
But there was
are
other
different,
issues
obviously.
involved around here, obviously. Main event, 33-26, the Raiders over the Rabbitohs. And I think that's like 6 of the last 7 they've beaten. As I said last week, the form is the form sometimes in these situations.
They've got some records over some of the better teams. They've got I'm pretty sure they go pretty close with Melbourne most of the times they play them. They give the Sharks all
Beat
sorts
the
of trouble
Sharks,
over the last 6 years. So
It's interesting. This was it was probably the game of the weekend. Entertaining game, plenty of points, some baffling stuff at times. But what did the stats say first?
5 tries apiece. 3 out of 5 conversions played 4 out of 5. 2 out of 2 penalty attempts for Canberra and 1 out of 1 field goal attempts. 89% completion played 84%. 219 plus running metres and 134 plus post-contact metres for Canberra. 4 line breaks to 7. 11 tackle busts for Souths, which is not something you see every week. 31 for the Raiders. 1 offload to 7. 1 forced dropout to 2. 327 tackles played 375. 3 errors to 5, 4 penalties conceded to 7. 2 ruck infringements to 3. Isaiah Tass with 117 Supercoach points. Albert Hopewate with 114. And Corey Horsburgh, I think you said he got dropped a point. So he was on 100 when I wrote these down, but he's back down to 99.
They robbed him of his ton, the jerks. Let's start with him because
he was tough as nails.
And this is a classic case of
his form's gone through the
there's
roof.
there's a sector of like people that look back on footy games and look at stats and go, oh, well, he mustn't have done much. He only ran 90 metres. But fuck me, every time he touched the ball, 3 South blokes were shitting themselves about what was going to happen next. Even when he fell over, he managed to get up and roll over and barge 3 away and score a try. He was absolutely outstanding in this game, inflicting Ranger-based murder on whoever was in his path.
And his defence, he hits like a truck as well. His defence has gotten a lot better recently.
I imagine he's on him and Hopgood, I imagine, are on the periphery of that Queensland back row, but he was absolutely outstanding.
Get a crack in though.
No, surprised he didn't, to be honest. But he was outstanding.
Given a go.
A bit baffling at times, I thought, from both teams, because the times they spread the ball, South in particular, Tass was tormenting the edge on that Tomoko out there. Every time he touched it, either looks like points were coming or he was scoring them himself. And he got one, actually. Felt like he got more, but he was flicking it to...
Tomoko.
It was Hopewate. Not Hopewate.
The other centre.
The other centre who's... I just had a brain fart. Anyway, but it was baffling... Oh, Croker.
Yeah.
But it was slightly baffling the fact they didn't do it more. Because every time they did, there was success. And
AJ scored 2. Tass scored 1. Like... They were causing all sorts of problems down that side of the field, and for whatever reason, they seemed to go away from it. And the right-hand side was absolutely shot to shit in this game. It makes a difference when, obviously, you had Campbell Graham wasn't there, was he? But yeah, the right side for the Souths were very average in this game. Tane Milne and his mate out there, but it came from the forwards at the end of the day. My first thought was that Souths were probably the better team, and the more I looked into it and had another look at the game, Canberra just absolutely ravaged the middle of the field. Like, Horsburgh, Papali'i and Joe Tarpanay were just running for metres for fun through the middle of this pack. Offloads coming off the back of it as well. And Souths just could not match them at all in the middle of the field. Their forwards were pretty average, realistically.
And last year it was a concern at the point in how Souths would go with that forward pack, but their forward pack's been quite physical, but they've now been sort of bossed or matched since that Tigers game. So there's now 3 weeks in a row where You want to see a little bit more. And I sat here at this table last year about this time and declared Brisbane would win the comp. And they didn't win a game after that. And I did it again for Souths.
Last
and,
week, wasn't it? Yeah.
You're welcome, Souths, because you're in a lot of trouble. What else do we take out of this? So, actually, just touch on Tarpanay. 227 metres. I like this setup of the forward pack now for the Raiders. I like, I think Solo's done some good work now coming in there.
Yep.
Pupley's obviously committed full time, and you throw Horsburgh and Tarpanay in more of that direct centre of the field ball playing role.
And
Herrera
and Ira was doing a really good job too until he got injured in this game. Obviously, shocking scenes that nobody wants to see.
Yeah, awful. Was
he's come out today and put a video out saying that he was released from hospital and he's just got a few more scans and stuff and he's feeling a lot better. So I'm not 100% sure what that was. I think it seemed like a delayed concussion for mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
he didn't look
worrying.
well. I went back and watched it, trying to work out what happened because they didn't show a lot, and he went from sort of looking at the sideline like he was about to chunder or something, and then next minute he was on the ground.
So I had a delayed concussion a long time ago when I was a young fellow, about 16, and I copped a couple of knees to the head, and I went to bed, and I woke up 7 or 8 hours later feeling like I was going to die. Similar. It wasn't seizing to that sort of extent, but I was shaking and screaming and crying, vomiting, and
similar, same thing. It was it was school footy, and didn't think of it. Ended up in hospital that night because woke up 10 o'clock, vomiting up everywhere, black stuff. Couldn't same thing. But back then there wasn't so much of a concussion. It was just like, you must, I think they ended up saying I had shock or something, but it was, I guess the symptoms are the same. So, hopefully, I assume something like that dictates an 11-day stand down at least.
You would imagine so, minimum.
So hopefully he's on the mend because he's been playing some decent enough footy, but his mates are in very good form, and they have a very sympathetic draw now. So, a little bit nervous that that top 8's looming for the Raiders.
Yep. Whiten was pretty good, I thought. He seemed to have the defence sort of second-guessing whether he was going to run the ball or whether he was going to pass it, and caused a few problems there, put Croker away down the sideline a couple of times and cut him open himself once or twice. Doesn't really portray in the stats as much as you would think, but I thought he was quite good and a big part of their attack in this game. There wasn't a lot, as I mentioned, out of the South's forward pack. I thought Sele and Totola were decent in their efforts, but probably not many else in the middle. Keon was decent coming back from injury. Obviously, in a better world, he plays 80 minutes and probably makes a massive difference in this game. But coming back from injury, he did what he could. Walker did enough again. He was a big part of the points when they were involved for the South Sydney team. And Cook and Tass were South's best players on the field, I thought. Cook with a point to prove, and Tass, as you said, he looked very hard to defend. He was causing a lot of problems out there. But it was the big men. I mentioned Whiten, but it was the big men in the middle that were the difference. Gula and Solo had really good games coming off the bench and added plenty to this pack. Corey, Papali'i, and Tapane, they were just amazing, man. I made a point of going back because, as I said, I was a bit perplexed at how it got away from Souths, and then I just went back and watched it again and just went, okay, that's what happened. These three big blokes just absolutely dominated the middle of the field. So,
interesting to say Tass before we move on. Given Whiten's coming, I'm interested to see what they do. Whether they try and they push him out to a wing, or whether, I was having a chat over the weekend again with someone else, talked plenty of footy, which is always good. But a team like Parramatta, you'd think would be given throwing it back in a truck up for someone like him.
Yeah, you
they
would
could
think
use
so.
a strike. They want that
absolutely.
X factor, and they've had those issues for years on an edge. I think he looks so obvious. He'll probably sit up at the Roosters like everyone else once in a while he goes, but be very interesting what they do because he's a weapon. He's obviously a genuine strike first grade centre and deserves to be so. So.
Yeah, brilliant in this game. He's a little bit slight and does get sort of pushed off a bit in defence, but in attack, his footwork's brilliant, and he's as quick as you need to be a decent strike centre out there. So, it's a bit interesting what happens there with White, and as you mentioned, it's looks like he's probably going to be the one left holding the bag, but it's pretty unfortunate. He has been good and someone that we've had raps on coming through. So.
Yeah, I don't know what
I gave Horsburgh the 3.
Yes, I did too.
Try scored. As you said, he only made, 80 metres or something, but they were all good, tough carries, and he made plenty of tackles as well. He definitely left his mark on this game. Tarpanay with 2, and then I gave Papa Lee the 1.
I think that's a good... yeah, all right, that's fine. Tass would be...
Tass. Tass probably pretty...
I'll give Tass 1, actually.
Yeah, give Tass the 1, okay.
But, well, he's not the only strike centre in the shop. When someone like a Connor Tracy, I guess, has put his name up the last 2 weeks. So I'm sure the player market circus will kick off soon.
Yeah, a few months.
And this afternoon, 28-18. Again, I guess class prevailed in the end, but this should have probably been 48-18 with the amount of ball and possession the Knights had and got through against the Seagulls, Barney. And I've got to do the stats, don't I? Look out.
No, I've written them down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we had 6 tries to 3, 2 out of 6 conversions, played 2 out of 3 for Manly. 1 out of 1 penalty attempt for Manly, 82% completion, played 84%, 482 plus running metres. Excuse me, I'm assuming that's Newcastle. 6 line breaks to 1, 42 tackle busts to 19, 8 offloads to 6, 271 tackles played, 317, 9 errors to 7, 7 penalties conceded to 9, and 4 ruck infringements from both teams. Do you have Supercoach? These are subject to change, obviously, but I got it. Here we go. We had Greg Marzu with 137, Ponga with 86, and then you had Dominic Young on 83 before you got to Toff Sipley for the Manly side on 72.
What'd you make of all this?
It's a weird one. The forward battle was pretty much even, I thought, for big parts of the game.
I wouldn't necessarily... I think it was the first half hour. I think Newcastle owned the middle of the field towards the back end of that.
Yeah, true.
Like they, your Leo Thompsons, Fitzgibbons,
Crocker,
Saifidis, all actually. There's not a lot of run meters. It's their outside. It was actually their outside backs. Sorry,
yeah,
so
the middle of the field to me
proper sense, and I'll
seemed pretty even. There was a lot of back and forth. The weirdest part of it seemed to be how often the play broke down for both teams. I think you still got to remember how that Newcastle realistically are playing with a halves combination that have 3 or 4 games together with Hastings and Gamble.
But a good 3 or 4 games.
Yeah. No, they do enough between the two of them. There was Schuster was on fire in the first half an hour of this game, and he was a big part of why Manly were more than competitive in the first half of this match. And he was doing some very nice things. Intercept, obviously, that led to a try.
He took about 4 steps, and then the dead set looked like he's on the fucking carousel about to go round and round because he was going up and down in one spot. But luckily enough, Sarborough was outside him, and off he went. But he's some of his thing is he's when you put yourself on record and say you want to be the best player and this and that, he's probably to play 580 realistically probably needs to drop another 10 kilos. Looking at him.
Definitely got skill. He's got a very nice short passing game. His kicking game left a little bit to be desired in this one.
Well, he actively took it on himself to do that.
He was the guy who had to do it. But
I don't know if it's just a kicking style, but he
shanks higher more than long, which is something
inside
obviously
of the boot.
he's going to need to work on if he's going to be the constant kicker. He had a couple of nice little touches to putting the ball in goal and back across the field for the Parker try where he offloaded back and Parker didn't score it. The hooker ended up diving on it after Crosland touched it. But he definitely had some class touches, but he was the last half an hour of the game. I don't think I saw him.
No,
I can't remember seeing him once in the last half an hour of the game, except for maybe if someone ran past him. But
And I get that it's true because they were pinned for a large chunk
absolutely.
of that, so I understand it. But there was no. We'll put it this way: a game like that, DCE kicks them out of trouble.
Yeah, well,
DCE kicks 700
they only
metres.
scored 4 points in the second half and never really looked like a
Well,
threat.
they didn't get in the half. Whereas at least if Daly's there, he's the best back foot halfback in the comp because he's had to be for 5 years.
Where he's drilling them 50, 60 metres down into a corner, and Schuster seemed to go 20 metres, and then they started going up.
Yeah,
and,
I was shocked. Jake Arthur, they didn't, probably
bring him
pull
on a bit
earlier. Yeah, just to do that.
Considering how many defensive issues that Cooper Johns was providing for his opposition, he got made look silly a couple of times. Young bloke on his outside was cooler, didn't really help him either. But
they did well. Olaquat, who smothered for him probably 3 occasions.
Yeah, well, he saved 3 tries
again.
off his
We're
own
talking
bat.
about the side traver, even the try saver. In the other game, this was just as good. We wrapped over the
brilliant 2 in the space of about 10 minutes, I think.
They were picking apart the right edge. The correct edge, the left edge, but
and then there was 2 line breaks that he cut down as well.
Yeah.
He wasn't at his best with his running game, but he definitely put in plenty of effort. Olakuatu. I don't know if that's just they're not using him correctly at the moment with his running game, but the ball seems to be getting to him too early. He really needs the ball on the advantage line and being able to sort of go through, with half a hole in front of him, and then he just powers his way through. But
I think the more Adam Elliott gets to play, I think that helps. He can do that grunt work a little bit early in the set, but it's sorry. Idiot. God, I'm an idiot. It's been a long weekend.
Yes, but definitely missed.
Well,
Jake.
they're missing it. Sorry, to the point. They're missing their partners in crime. Still not sure what Kepi adds. Paseka just had his quiet game because he's had a couple of monster ones.
Had a couple of nice runs.
I like Feiner.
Looks like a player.
He's got some. He's almost
definitely got
similar
the size
mold.
and
He's
the
got the size, that lanky build that he'll probably still grow into, being young, but got through a lot of work.
Did.
And I thought has something to offer there.
Their outside backs were shocking at times, realistically, in this game. For Manly, KO Weeks didn't really add anything. Neither did probably Parker or Cooler, to be honest. Cooler was probably close to the worst performance I think I've seen on the weekend. And then ends up getting himself sent off for 10 minutes right at the back end of the game, where it blew open. Like Manly were doing a good enough job to sort of keep the game close enough until that last 15 minutes of this game when Cooler got sent off, and then they just got cut to ribbons a couple of times on just down a long edge where they didn't have enough defence. So.
Yeah. Look, the story of this. Just quickly want to mention Ponga. For a bloke that has issues he has, God, he can get hit in the head.
You can always find a shoulder, can't
How is he...
Dead set.
There was a period where Teddy
was
was doing the same thing, so I don't know whether it's just his running style, but he copped... I was surprised there wasn't HI for both of those, to be honest, but he battled on. He looked fine. He was early on perhaps overplaying his hand, sneaking to first receiver a bit too often. Had the left sweep back on today, which suited. I don't quite know where that combination of Hastings and him is, because, God bless him, not really knock, but we've now seen 2 seasons in a row where Jackson Hastings isn't necessarily a massive point-producing halfback, does lots of great stuff, gets through good long kicking, gets through enough stuff, but doesn't produce... We see mountains of territory, but very little points.
10-minute period there where I said to you, while we're sitting here watching it, Hastings went out of his way not to give the fucking thing to Ponga because Ponga had gotten in the way 2 or 3 times in a row, and he just went, nah, you're not getting the ball for 5 or 10 minutes. Just go away, and we'll come back to you in a minute. But no, they were smart enough to game controlling out of those 2. Gamble made a couple of little errors in his passing game, but was good enough. Which to get them home. Manly a funny one, because if they're not, they're either absolutely killing the middle of the field and belting blokes and aggressive and all pumped up, or they just sort of seem to jog into the line and
Well, they had no line
and-
speed today. That
yeah.
was half the problem.
There was no defensive line speed,
That's what I mean,
at
yeah.
all. Like, they weren't getting up. They weren't trying to put shots on blokes, and that makes it a hell of a lot easier for the opposition, especially if they get on a roll, to just continually push the defensive line back. And we all know, as soon as the defensive line starts going backwards, you've got all sorts of problems. So.
Yeah. We knew coming in what this result would be probably, and it played out pretty much. Do you take
Might
it
tip
against
Manly
them?
for the upset. As I said on the show, I thought there might just be something out of Schuster and that, and the signs were looking good up until half time. But the structure in their attack really fell apart in the back end, and they'd had fuck all ball as well either.
Well, yeah.
They seemed to give away penalties in the worst field position possible. When they had Newcastle in their own 30, they'd give away a penalty and then get marched downfield and then drop
Ultimately,
it on their own.
well, from both sides, it wasn't a high quality game because you'd look away and the other team would have possession, and apparently they completed at 84 and 90%. So that's news to me.
Apparently,
So-
but it was more the penalties and the 6 agains and all that kind of stuff, just really at the wrong time for both of these sides. The big one for Manly was the missed tackles. So 42 tackle busts made by Newcastle and 19 by Manly. You have a look at the Manly side. There was 4 or 5 blokes that missed 5 tackles.
Yeah.
You just can't do that and expect to win games of footy.
And that was all edge
Like,
stuff. So Bradman Best was
Yeah,
in real good start,
Saab
in real
missed
good form.
5 out of 9. Cooler missed 6 out of 14. Cooper Johns, Prosecco both missed 5 tackles. So it's just, you can't do that.
We haven't touched them yet, but Young and Marzu, Newcastle's best probably, and but their ability
Best
to create
was up
points
there as
out
well.
of, but they're they do a lot of it themselves. They do a lot of that work
Yeah, yeah,
themselves,
absolutely.
especially Marzu. We were calling for Best to pass the ball for half an hour, and then
Finally
what was it,
did.
31st minute or something. Yeah,
Crashed
30,
over and scored in the
49.
corner.
Like
There
half
was
hour in.
about
they,
3 opportunities in the space of 10 minutes where Best obviously went himself.
Yeah.
But he still wasn't even when he got into the line, he wasn't looking to promote the ball to anyone else. It
No.
was just all about him trying to run over the top of people and score tries. And the first time he catches and passes, Marzu one-on-one, like not many people stop him one-on-one. He just powered in and scored. Ended up getting a hat-trick, which was nice. Dominic Young, that was electric, that run that he put down the right-hand side. Blew away 3 or 4 different blokes and then come back inside.
I thought he was outstanding. Marzu got a hat trick.
Marzu got a hat-trick.
I was thinking Young 3 points more than anything, but if you want to go the other way, that's fine too. But they were probably the difference, really. But all that Gay Guy had a big game in response to the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
and
Best
Bradman
had a
Best was
fantastic
outstanding
game.
too. So
Manly's outside edges were the reason they lost this game, especially in their defence. They were horrible, and they didn't add much in attack either, to be honest. So
no.
that's probably been their biggest problem for the entirety of the year. When these guys have a good game, they're pretty decent footballers, but more often than not, they seem to turn out pretty average performances week in, week out. So interesting.
Well, and that's where I laughed about everyone raving about Scott Fulton coming to the Tigers, and you actually look at Manly's recruitment, it's based around 3 blokes.
Yeah, a lot of their younger guys aren't setting the world on fire.
So, yeah, well, they are who they are. You know, if Tobo and DC aren't there, they're the rest of them are borderline first graders at any other club.
Saab was decent. I probably can't lump Saab and Garrick into that, but the other 3...
I can't love Garrick into that either.
Weeks, Parker and Cooler have had, nights to forget. They got terrorised in the
It's
centres.
also been now a couple of weeks in this season where they've missed a trick just not playing Garrick at fullback.
Yeah.
We've said it before, and same again here. I think you've just got to... If you've got your class, you back your class in your most important
bring
spots.
someone like Tui Palutu onto the wing and leave KO Weeks as your 14.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
what do we know?
Wingers getting points here, I think.
Yeah,
for,
both
for
of them.
Newcastle. Which way do you want to go?
I would have gone Marzu just for the hat trick.
I'm fine with that.
And then you go to Dominic Young. It'd be the next one for me would have been
Bradman Best.
Be Bradman Best or maybe Jacob Saifidi, who did a bit of work, but probably Bradman Best.
I reckon Bradman Best. The outside backs told the story here. That's been our whirlwind look through round 13. Have you got pot plants and stuff?
I do.
haven't thought of this stuff.
I did.
Give it to us.
Jack Johns is getting my slap this week from the Newcastle Knights team. 3 runs in 80 minutes of football. What are you doing? You're a second rower, mate. He made 20-odd tackles, I think, missed a couple, but yeah, that's like you're a second rower because you're someone who runs at the defence and causes problems on an edge. He probably got cut out a couple of times because they were wanting to go out to the outside backs a bit quicker, but come on, man. You can do more than 3 runs in 80 minutes.
That's why I didn't like. I surely, and I get he's only been there a week, but surely Jake Arthur adds more to that. But I understand coming in, he's going to be a controlling half. And
but he would have only had, what, 3, probably only had 3 days to train with them.
That's what I mean. So I can understand it, but
Schuster would have been better off playing 6 anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so, but what do you do?
Yeah, anyway.
Might have missed the trick there.
I'm going to slap Kenny Bromwich just because it's becoming more of a pattern these days. He's getting older and crumpier, so get some of that shit out of your game, Kenny, because I'm a fan. Have you got a pot plant? I'm going to go for KO Weeks.
I had 2, to be honest.
Yeah. Who would they be?
One was Cooler, as I mentioned.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Cooler.
Yeah, it's sort of Cooler. You could probably even throw Cooper Johns in there if you really wanted to. But that 10 minutes at the back end of this game really killed off any chance that Manly had. And they were still close-ish at the time and could have come home and won that game with that last 15 minutes of this one. And Josh Hodgson from Parramatta.
He's actually a problem now, isn't he? We didn't talk about
He
him
is
at all.
becoming a massive problem. He had 2 runs. I think he made 20-odd tackles. They hooked him after 55 minutes or something. But he is just getting in the way. He is not providing any real, he's either picking up and passing it, which is the best part of his game at the moment. Just pass it as soon as you get hold of it. But as soon as he starts trying to look and probe around and look for someone to run off him, he's throwing horrible passes at blokes' knees, at their foreheads, or he's just fumbling with the ball.
Yeah.
And he's just killing their attack.
I'm sure he's destined for a great career as an assistant coach somewhere or as a James Graham media type or something, but it might be time.
We've given him plenty of raps. Like when he was at Canberra, he was a fantastic player, but he's becoming a bit of a liability for this Parramatta side at the moment.
I suspect it won't be long before we see it flip.
Get some more minutes into hands.
Yeah. You got a salute? How are we wrapping up this?
Dallin. As you mentioned, I thought he was absolutely brilliant in this game. No fear in the bloke. Absolutely runs at 120-kilo front rowers and just throws his body into it. He's fantastic in the air. Took another lovely catch over the top of his opposition in this game. And his footwork's been tremendous the last couple of weeks. I thought he had an absolute blinder of a game.
It's funny how often in a round you get a tail around where things line up, but it was the wingers, it was the stars this week. I'm going to give my salute to Azarko because I think he's in career best form and was absolutely outstanding again. Potentially was a difference maker, potentially the difference in that game.
He'd be buy of the year in Supercoach this year too.
Absolutely,
I've never actually owned him.
I've got him in draft, so
I'm pretty sure he's around 400 at the start of the year as well.
And people may have scoffed, but and both of they're 2 redemption stories, really. They've both reinvented themselves at new clubs and been absolutely fantastic. So more power to both of them. That has been our review show. We've got through those games in quick order. But by the time you all listen to this, of course, check out our State of Origin preview, which will be up at the same time. And we'll talk soon. See you guys.
Goodbye.